I missed it. I don't know what to tell you guys. Here in the holiday season, ArenaNet did drop a little earlier in the week a trailer for episode 5 of this Living World season, All or Nothing. Now, they've done this pretty early. It comes out in the new year, January 8th. But I guess because Christmas and New Year and stuff is in the middle, they wanted to get that hype out and the trailer a bit earlier. I actually kind of like the idea of earlier trailers, honestly. It gives us longer to think about what might be coming up and more time for the news to proliferate and let people know that, hey, as soon as this holiday season's over, you get to start off 2019 with, a new episode coming out super soon. So it's really welcome. They reveal a lot of very cool things in the trailer, even though the trailer itself is kind of short. So I want to walk you guys through exactly what we see here, a lot of the little details you might have missed, and in particular some stuff that excites me. Now, this trailer opens with a badass line right at the start that put a massive smile on my face, because you've heard me speculating and wanting about it since Season 3, for a period of about 2 years, since before the most recent expansion. You've been hearing me suggesting we'll go to a place and asking to go to a place, and watch how the trailer begins. Okay, let's see.
Ogden, it's good to... About time you showed up. We're going to Thunderhead Keep.
Welcome, Scion and Champion. If you're here, the final confrontation with Krokotoric is imminent.
Logan's here with the pack. Same with Rox and the Omicron.
Let's ring this dragon's bell one last time.
Just to be clear, you do know this plan is insane. Let's say bold.
Everyone, listen up. Glint believed in us. I believe in you. Together, we're going to save the world and kill the Crystal Dragon.
All right, Guild Wars 2 All or Nothing, January 8th, 2019. It's a very short, sweet, to-the-point trailer with a lot of detail, obviously, in terms of what we see in the footage, but also these overlays and lower thirds and things the cinematics team have put on there to teach us more about the release. Let's get in, and yes, going straight back to the start, the new map is called, let me scroll to it here, the Thunderhead Peaks, introduced to us by Ogden. So let's watch that first scene again.
Ogden, it's good to... About time you showed up. We're going to Thunderhead Keep.
All right, beautiful music as well. I don't really have much to comment on throughout the trailer. It does sound like another piece that, in fact, I think a dev confirmed on Reddit. This was a piece composed for the trailer like we've seen going on throughout the season. But yeah, so we get Ogden, we get Thunderhead Keep. If you guys haven't been following my videos and are a little bit out of the loop, there was a very small, sneaky addition in a recent patch. I think when Roller Beetle Racing competition and the car giveaway and stuff was added to the game. Where the story continued just a tiny bit. Kaith was added to the Sun's Refuge, and she mentioned she wanted to see the Brotherhood of the Dragon. I did a video about that, and it was a huge tip-off that we might be going to speak to Ogden, and also that we might be going to the Shiver Peaks next release. Both are true, so they really cut to the chase straight away. I love this because it shows the trailer team knows 100% where the community is thinking about right at the start of the trailer, and they just give you the goods immediately. So it looks like we come back to the Dermot Priory Special Archives. Of course, people who have been building the armor set of the most recent release, Requiem, which I only just got around to doing, really, will know that we came here, actually, for research on a different purpose. This time we get to speak to Ogden. I find the orb up here quite curious. This still appears to be the shattered remains of the hourglass we used to travel to Glint's lair way back in Season 2. And Ogden's kind of looking at it. I wonder if that will be relevant in the story in any way, but I think that's what this is. It's kind of a cool... It suggests it's glass, but it also seems a bit like a magical force field, kind of holding the remains of the hourglass in there. Oh, looking back at those heady days where some of us actually got an hourglass sent out to us. But yeah, so Ogden, he's really well animated here as well. I wonder if we'll be getting a lot of that kind of mocap stuff. If you remember that big Joko kind of cinematic we had a couple of releases ago now, it was done super well, and I've wanted to see more. It looks like this patch comes out hitting pretty hard with Ogden. So, yeah, there's not much more to say about his actual line, but we're going to Thunderheads. Ever since the first set of raid wings in the Forsaken Thicket came out, I've been hoping for us to go to Thunderhead. My motivation for it and my thinking why the devs might take us there was a bit different in the past, though. It was more to do with the Bloodstone Shard we knew was in the Shiver Peaks, and the White Mantle's interest in the Shiver Peaks and some of those Massart ties, which are now kind of dead and buried as of, you know, Season 3 concluding. So now we get an alternate reason we're going to Thunderhead. So if you guys don't know, a very quick crash course on what this location is. It appeared in the original game. There are still a lot of places from the original Guild Wars we can't explore in the sequel, and even in Corteria. This is one of them. It's really the center of Dwarven civilization back when they were still on the surface, before they turned to stone, before they en masse went into the depths of Tyria. Thunderhead Keep was two things. It was known as players to a particularly difficult cooperative mission, which was kind of the gateway to the final area of the game, the Ring of Fire Island Chain. And when Prophecies first came out, it was notoriously hard, like extremely difficult until eventually it got nerfed down. I personally have my own experiences of difficulty there. When I first started on YouTube, I was doing a solo series through the original campaign of Guild Wars 1 Prophecies, and soloing Thunderhead Keep took me like weeks, and there were like 8 videos or 6 videos each, you know, over half an hour long, showing all my strategies and attempts to get through this goddamn thing. It was one of the most challenging things I'd ever done, and I captured it all on YouTube, and that kind of bit me with the bug of the whole, you know, website. So I've got a lot of special memories for it. I've wanted to go back there forever. I think most recently you last heard me talking about Thunderhead, you know, the obvious cave story edition recently aside, was actually when the Underworld's raid wing came out. If you remember the trailer for that, it showed kind of an icy looking keep, and they gave us no context as for what it was, and I said, oh, you know, maybe Thunderhead at last. That was the last time I said it, and this trailer is actually giving me flashbacks to that raid trailer. Anyway, so yeah, Ogden says this. How much Ogden will have to do with the patch, I'm very curious about. The Brotherhood of the Dragon, where are they? How many are they? Are they underground? Are they at the ruined capital of the dwarves? So Thunderhead itself, by the way, you know, the dwarves lived around the southern Shiver Peaks in these areas we haven't been to, but Thunderhead itself was the capital. Earlier I was saying it was two things. Number one, it was a hard mission for players, but number two, in lore, it was the capital. There was Thunderhead Keep and Thunderhead City. You know, two distinct areas in lore, but you explore both of them in the same cooperative mission. And, you know, this kind of place would have fallen to ruin in the years since the dwarves left, right? Or at least been followed up by Dredge and whatnot. Who's excited about seeing Dredge in this map? Hey, who knows? So, we get a fly-through of the map itself. Thunderhead Peaks down here is what it's now called. I'm very excited to come back here in the format of a very large map as well, by the way. If you look at the world map here, this section of the Shiver Peaks has always been this really nice looking rectangle. And I remember way before Path of Fire came out, I'd always salivated at the idea of the devs releasing this as just one giant map. That was in Guild Wars 2 without the context of mounts and mount speed and all those kinds of things. It was very exciting to me. Now, these days, with the size of the maps they've got, I don't know, I'm not expecting this whole rectangle to fill in. But, you know, we could actually get a good chunk of it all dropped in at once. There could be all kinds of beautiful lore things here. Maybe I'll do a dedicated video talking about all the different things this map could touch on in terms of honoring the original game. But here on this shot, we have a fly-through, lots of verticality, lots to play with on our Griffin. And you might want to look again at the snowy areas of Path of Fire, because that's the most recent example we have of the environment designers and, you know, ArenaNet's work when it comes to snowy climbs. Now, though, and you'll see they already had a lot of verticality going on. They had one of my favorite things in the whole expansion there, the Dwarven Tomb, and I think it would be criminal for the devs not to look at how well that was received and do something similar in the Thunderhead Peaks where, you know, we get to descend into some kind of pseudo-dungeon again. But I think the other thing that we'll notice the devs do here in terms of playing with verticality is now, unlike with the Desert Highlands, They know the vast majority of us have griffins, or a lot of us have griffins, and will want to play with them. And, you know, if we don't get some really awesome, maybe the best of the season, griffin races and whatnot here, or adventures, you know, I'll be damned. It should be pretty cool. Moving forwards, we got, like, this plateau here. Not sure there's much to say. Listen to the voiceover as it plays through.
Scion and Champion, if you're here, the final confrontation with Krokotoric is imminent.
So, we got a lot there. I just played that through so you could hear the audio. We hear, I think that's supposed to be Glint's voice, right? She's talking to us. She's talking to Aurene. Aurene mysteriously missing from this trailer, by the way. They've had a lot of story beats recently where they've had Aurene, like, fly off. And we're like, oh, when's she coming back? And then she comes back immediately later. Maybe this time, you know, she's been scared by her Doctor Strange visions. Maybe this time she'll actually be gone for a while. But yeah, so... what they're really setting up, and this should hopefully shake you guys a little bit, splash a bit of cold water into your faces and you know, what this trailer is. It's episode 5. Last season had 6 episodes, and then we moved on. We obviously had, with the anniversary of the game just a couple of months ago, the game director in an interview talking about season 5 coming. This is like the penultimate release, guys. This is the release that will set up the final confrontation. This is the release that really, I mean, never more have I been sure after having watched this and listened to this, that we're probably going to kill Krokotoric, or take the fight to Krokotoric in episode 6. And this is all about the big setup. And I'm really looking forward to that too, because if you look back at season 3, we kind of missed out a bit on that. We missed out on it because episode 6 last season was kind of a bonus, an attack on. And so the story took, you know, meandered and kind of went into a very different direction. Now I think it will all sort of flow into each other very, very well. But yeah, so I'm not sure that there's really much I can talk about the map design here, except that it's gorgeous, big, epic, grand new scale, Path of Fire stuff combined with mountain areas. You guys probably know this about me already, but I think in terms of Corteria and all the various biomes and things that ArenaNet represented way back at launch in 2012, I think the one that they did best were mountain landscapes. I think those are some of the most gorgeous, pure, beautiful places in Guild Wars 2. And now, for the first time, we get to really go back dedicated to that area. That hasn't happened in Season 2. It didn't happen in Heart of Thorns. Not in this expansion. Not really in Season 3 either. Though we had Bitterfrost. And, you know, Bitterfrost was easily the favourite map of most people, right? Visually. I wonder whether we'll get one of those Snowy Foresters again, actually. Since that was so well received. Though we don't see one, unfortunately. I'd love another one of those Snowy Forests. A big one. Here as well, by the way, we cut to this shot here. Is this Sienna here? We're underground. This reminds me a bit of the World vs. World desert borderland, actually. I had to hold my tongue and not say new borderland there for a moment. But, you know, I mentioned the idea of a big dwarven tomb being a really well-received thing from Path of Fire. Maybe they have done it again, and we're looking at it. You know, we still saw the lower third here. It just faded off, but this is kind of suggesting this is still Thunderhead, right? Are we underneath the capital city here? Is this the ruins of the capital city somehow? Or are we really low? Is the idea we're going depths of Tyria? So we do see these flags. I wish I was more of a lore nerd and immediately I could at a glance tell you if these are recognizably dwarven banners. But I'll tell you what, you guys can mention in the comments if they are. I would not be surprised if these, you know, were you know, the banner of Thunderhead or King Jarlath or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised even remotely. We also look like we got some kind of tent down here, some kind of makeshift camp. Well, I'm guessing as well, obviously we know that what they do with the game now is most heart NPCs are main stories NPCs. So if this was a heart area and this is a vendor, it wouldn't surprise me even remotely. So yeah, we cut from an interior underground to an exterior with a foreboding looking entrance. Look at this. You guys, Guild Wars 1 players might have a sense or a taste for this, but this kind of archway, this is so dwarven. You know, this isn't like any dwarven building we'd seen in the original, but this is so familiar to me and nostalgic to me. It's beautiful. Very, very, very cool. And what I think this is, obviously, is look at the door slightly cracked open. This is some vast building. We might not have great context for how big it is, but I'm sure this is enormous, right? Maybe even we could ride a raptor through this door. And, you know, this will probably lead us into the pit we were looking at a second ago. So the final confrontation with Krokotoric is imminent. Here we see, again, these kind of ruins, this rotted wood and these... But this is Dwarven again. Like, you can see a lot of this even in core Guild Wars 2 areas. If you go to like King Jarlath's refuge, the jumping puzzle and stuff, you'll recognize this kind of stuff. We have a minion of Kralkatorrik. Now this is kind of new, isn't it? I think this looks really derpy. I have to be honest, like really derpy. Maybe it looks better from some other angles or whatnot. Maybe again, I feel like most trailers I watch, it seems like there's something going on where it's like this blows up barricades or whatever. We talked a lot about with the beetle, and quite rightly so. But it feels like this is some kind of, charger that's going to break down a wall or something. Some kind of dangerous Kralkatorrik minion. I don't know. I'm not particularly intimidated by it, I must be honest. But you can see its facial structure, big jaw. It's got a bit of the Crimson Chin thing going on here. Very Kralky in resemblance. Anyway, so it charges through. And that's it that we get for Thunderhead for now. The trailer will return to it. And now we're going to move to a different feature as we see a beautiful sunny tropical climb. I'll be honest, the first time I saw this trailer, I never saw on the bottom left that the new map, I wasn't looking at the lower third properly. So as I was sitting up and starting to take it in, I was like, oh my god, what, the new map somewhere hot? Is it the Matani Keys, the Astani Isles? But no, not quite. This is the new fractal. Check it out. Also, you notice they got like a new kind of banner flag thing going on down here with the graphics. So, the new fractal, Siren's Reef. Let's go back to the first shot here before we miss it. Feels very South Sunny, doesn't it? We got some bristlebacks back here. Are these smoke scales? We got a shark. If this is a fractal, we're looking at potentially a fractal with a little bit more underwater stuff. I like it when we dip underwater just a bit. I'm wondering if this is supposed to be a proper coast, how the fractal keeps us in bounds. Are they going to have one of those really ugly, you are leaving the area, please swim back things? Are they going to have damage that ticks on you as you go over there? Maybe like immense agony or something. Or maybe there's just an invisible barrier that stops us. Maybe this is all just extraneous detail that we won't actually get to deal with. But it feels very South Sun. However, with the name, the Siren's Reef, I'm wondering if it's somehow related to Siren's Landing that we have, obviously, of ore, or when it's corrupted and whatnot. A big theme of that map, I mean a theme of ore in general in Guild Wars 2 is, oh, can we save the land? Can we make it happy and nice and clean again? I wonder whether this will be a fractal that takes us to ore, but you'll notice everything's clearly ruined. Not ore so far back in time when it was pristine and beautiful and amazing, which they probably don't have the budget to do justice to in a fractal, right? We saw, we got a little glimpse of that with the time bubble in the most recent episode. They won't take us back there. It won't be a fractal that takes us all the way back to Siren's Landing way back then. But what if it's an area of ore after the gods had left? And, maybe humans weren't living there anymore. A lot of ore, especially Ara, after the gods left, the Orions kept super pristine and clean and nice and sweet and in proper order. But you only ever really hear about that for Ara. Ores are this massive nation. It stands within reason. Some places might have got a bit ruined, maybe. Or maybe I'm looking at the word Siren way too much, and we could just be anywhere. It's a nice idea for a fractal, though, and we saw in episode 1, they tied the fractal that came with the release to the story. You had this boss and this character you met in the story, and if you played the fractal, you got to see her origin. You got to see how she got corrupted by Joko. So this time, I wonder if they'll be able to pull off the same thing. I wonder whether while we're in Thunderhead Peaks, this snowy dwarven range, we'll find a little bit more about the characters and their origins from this fractal somehow. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's some kind of tie-in with the dwarves in particular. We get this awesome dungeon entrance here with this like big Medusa head. The mouth opens up. We come in. You got pocket raptors featuring in a fractal, guys. Oh my god. And I think there's some reveal that there's a lot of new instabilities as well going on here, which will spice up fractals in general, right? I know that people are pretty averse to the idea of new instabilities and they don't like them feeling like a nuisance, but to me personally, that's always excited me about the format. I think it needs to keep as fresh as possible with as many instabilities as possible. But yeah, so that's these two shots. Not sure what else there is really to say, aside from the prospect of fighting pocket raptors in a fractal. Lots more Heart of Thornsy kind of creatures here. We've got, what is that, Sylvari Deadeye that's shooting it? The player, presumably. And maybe that's some kind of boss. I think there's maybe a frame we can get at. Yeah, the last frame of this shot here shows we've got more ruins, some kind of grate here, some kind of big wall, and another player actually over here with the stuff. It looks like a whole group of people. That'll probably be some kind of intermediary boss or opening boss. And then here as well, you notice, so a fractal is quite a short little story. You know, it's a slice of Tyria that we move through. However, the first 2 shots of Siren's Reef showed it was quite obviously daytime. And now this shot, we've got this beautiful, and I mean really gorgeous sunset. You know what this reminds me as well of visually is actually the Sanctum K mission from Guild Wars 1, where we meet with Vizier Kilbron and we flee on the boat that he raises from the depths of the water. It's just something about it feels very, very similar to that. So, hey, maybe we could be going back to Kryta. It does feel a bit Krytan, honestly. But yeah, back to the day-night thing. I wonder what they're doing here. You know, the sunsets as we play through the fractal. That's a cool idea. I also like the idea that we start outside and it's kind of an Indiana Jones adventure style fractal where it's daytime. Then we go into this tomb and this dark, dank place and break out the other side. And now the sun is setting when we, you know, breach the air again, get on the boat and flee or something. I don't know. That's the little story of the fractal I've built on my mind, just watching how they've strung together these trailer clips. It looks good though, and just being able to play in a very cold, chilly place. In season, you know, of winter. Obviously, Christmas will have passed by the time this comes out, but and then also have the fractal where it's very warm and hot and nice. I think will do well for the release, right? We can clearly see they are ghosts, right? So we're communicating with ghosts. Oh yeah, of course, and we even see this is a boss, right? That's gonna be a new skin, isn't it? It looks really cool with like the Kraken kind of tendril across it. But yeah, another boss, a ghost pirate dude. Hopefully it doesn't. I mean, I'm getting my Trin vibes watching this. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. Moving forward, so with the fractal done, the lower third leaves, we're now looking again at Thunderhead Peaks, I'm pretty sure. And in particular, I think we're at the Keep now. This is, you know, very reminiscent of the Keep. The actual mission itself, we once upon a time defended this from the Massart and the White Mantle as they besieged it alongside a necromancer summoning lots of undead and alongside the dwarves. It looks in pretty big disrepair right now, but this is, you know, earlier in the video I mentioned I have flashbacks to that raid trailer where I was like, oh, is it Thunderhead Keep? It feels the same, right, as when we were looking at the Underworld. So last time I was like, oh, this has got to be Thunderhead Keep. Now I'm saying it again. Am I going to be wrong? I don't know, guys. Anyway, the main thing that the trailer is actually trying to show us, aside from the background, is the player character here wielding a new weapon. And we see a beautiful unsheath effect here. This is the new legendary longbow, Tharus. I'm not quite sure what the meaning behind the name is. So I do like it. The unsheath looks quite nice. This is the kind of thing I think that'll look amazing for a dragon hunter. And you might think, well, okay, fine. Why is that interesting? I think it's interesting because this is Generation 2 legendaries, which I know that we're a long way past the goalposts now. But when I think Generation 2 legendaries, I still kind of correlate them in a lot of ways to Heart of Thorns, the first expansion, when Gen 2 legendaries started being a thing, and clearly the devs had like some ambitions for them to be, you know, to get a wave out then, and then they decided to take their time and filter them out through Living World releases. We're very near the end of the set, so what does this mean? A longbow, this release, it means the finale has the final Generation 2 legendary weapon, which is going to be the Great Sword, or swords. I think that's everything, right? The longbow, this is the second. Maybe I'm forgetting one. We saw last season, obviously, they did a double release with legendary weapons. They did a sword and the hammer together. So if I am forgetting one, I'm pretty sure episode 6 will have the great sword and whatever other thing I'm forgetting. Or multiple great swords, just like Gen 1 had multiple great swords. But yeah, so we get the longbow in this release. I really like the way that lines up. Legendary great swords have always felt like the most iconic of legendaries. And so to end on a high note is kind of cool. To talk about Tharus itself, yeah, it feels good for like a DH, I suppose. I'm a little bit disappointed in it. I mean, I don't want to be a miser or a Debbie Downer in this, but it does just feel a bit like a Chaos skin to me. You know, we already have a very glowy white, not much detail, not much intricate going on. Like, when I look at Chukran Champawat, the short bow, the Gen 2 short bow, that thing to me is like one of the most beautiful legendaries that they've ever made. Probably my favorite. Amazing footfalls, unsheathed, projectiles, sound effects, but also just the weapon itself. You know, it's this gargantuan short bow, first of all. It's this huge short bow. But it's got this beautiful, intricate detail. For Tharus, I mean, it's a nice aesthetic, right? Because it's a glowy white thing. But you don't get much more out of it than it being a glowy white thing. Maybe I'm underestimating the little moving pieces and the metal on here and You know, maybe that will keep going. It does look like the character's glowing a lot. I don't know if that's just coming off of the bow, or it will be a bit like the Juggernaut, you know, which adds this chromatic effect to your whole character. Maybe Faris adds some kind of shiny effect. If you're a Char, it makes your tail glow. You know, I don't know. We also seem to have a bit of an effect here, but I don't know if that's just the shoulder piece that this character's wearing. They did an amazing job with Chuk and Champawat, though, I have to say. So I have high expectations for the longbow. And on the trailer so far, I don't know, 100%. Here we do see it fire, and they look like, you know, little glowy white needles as it's firing here. It's branded. By the way, also, yeah, you know, I think we are at Thunderhead Keep, or the city, whichever, whatever, a dwarven area. But you have seen looming in the background more of these big Kraukatoric storms and potentially time rifts and dilations and things going on all over the place. That's another beautiful twist to the new map, by the way. We're not just necessarily gonna get Thunderhead Peaks and these great dwarven areas, but also we could have time rifts and things going on. I just want you guys to consider the impact of being in the Shiver Peaks, potentially on some high plateau or something, and you walk into a time bubble and suddenly you're in the desert again. Yeah? Oh, it's gonna be good. It could be very, very, very good. Anyway, fighting branded.
Ring this dragon's bell one last time.
And we get to see, you know, the footfalls here as well. There looks like there's a bit of a lightning-y trail. So in the voiceover there, we hear Bram saying, let's ring that dragon's bell one last time. I guess this is a bit of a colloquialism for him. He's talking about fighting Kraukatoric again. Now, don't forget, he's had an epic Elder Dragon confrontation of his own against Jormag recently. And while we are in the Shiver Peaks, we're not going to be fighting Jormag. But I wonder whether we can lean on him for a bit of advice, since he's had, you know, an actual attempt at fighting one of them more recently than the others of us at the moment. Potentially. But yeah, we are going to be dealing with Kraukatoric, who we have tried before. Another really exciting thing about this release for me, story-wise, and where we are, is it's very reminiscent of Destiny's Edge making their own plan many years ago now to fight Kraukatoric, and they failed, right? So if this release is, hey, we're doing it, we're setting up the actual showdown, we're going to try and fight Kraukatoric, and it's Kraukatoric, that, you know, the genesis for all of Guild Wars 2, to me, is, you know, Destiny's Edge attempting this fight, fighting alongside with Glint. To me, there's a lot of justifications for Kraukatoric being the end of Guild Wars 2 altogether. Like, he could be the final Elder Dragon to fight. I personally am not a major fan of that idea. I think Primordus would be the coolest to fight last, because he was the first to awaken. But Kraukatoric's got all these big character reasons for why maybe he is the epic conclusion to everything. And I could see why people would justify it like that. It feels like now we're getting in episode 6, and it's like, wow, these are big story beats that have been setting up since that novel. You know, that novel set 5 years before the original campaign, before Core Guild Wars 2. It's, you know, it's going to be a big resolution if we really go for this fight here. And that's why I'm so happy to see a character in this patch in an upcoming shot. Anyway, so yeah, that's what they're saying in the voiceover.
Just to be...
Next shot, we get a roller beetle. It looks like there is a new beetle skin here. Do they normally advertise mount skins on trailer videos like this? They don't normally, do they? Does that mean that this is actually an in-game earnable mount skin that's coming in this release? Or maybe they do put gem store stuff in trailers. I can't say I pay enough attention to that. Do you guys want to fill me in the comments there? But this is definitely not a normal roller beetle, and they've shown it in the trailer. What I also think is really nice about this shot is, I mean, just look in the background. Look how wide open these plains are, suggestive of a really nice big map. We have kind of machinery going on here. Pipes. You know what I said about the dredge earlier? I really, you know, a big story, the story that we're dealing with right now with the Elder Dragons and the characters we've got on Aurene and Glint and all that, that's fine, right? That's the story we're dealing with. But the story that this region is dealing with, more than anything else, and I know it's not a fan favorite story, but is the dredge rising to the lands that they were once enslaved in and filling in the boots and the empty terrains of the dwarves. You know, that's the story of the Shiver Peaks in a lot of ways. That's why maps like Dredgehorn Cliffs exist, to celebrate that story and that idea. That doesn't go away just because now we're really interested in Kraukatoric and Aurene and all this other stuff, and because, you know, of all the chaos. I really do think we'll be seeing stuff, and if this isn't contemporary dredge architecture, I think it's possibly old stuff. I mean, the other wild card is it's steam creature stuff. Steam creatures kind of fit into this story in a really beautiful way, I think, considering how they appear and interact with Tyria and all the time spacey nonsense that's going on with them. You know, if they tie this into the Infinity Ball somehow, that'd be so nuts. But yeah, and you know, more nods back to Scarlet potentially. But this is the architecture here isn't what strikes me most about this. It's actually just kind of the broad scope we get, and the idea that, you know, I've been seeing in this trailer, and you think Shiver Peaks rocks, and you think lots of obstacles and freedom of movement for maybe springers and griffins, but not so much beetles. And then in the trailer here, they do show a roller beetle moving quite liberally through pretty open fields of ice as well. Man, if we get something like the Drakkar Ice Lake from Far Shiver Peaks, you know, something resembling it, not actually being it, obviously, it would be kind of nice to move around on a beetle. But yeah, so not much more to say there.
Clear. You do know this plan is insane.
Kanak there in the background says, to be clear, you do know that this plan is insane. We get another 2 shots of the roller beetle, and they start talking about why. It's because of the new mastery, Bond of Faith. So far this season, all the masteries have really been about upgrading mount interactions. And on paper, you know, hearing myself say that out loud, it sounds like a really exciting thing, doesn't it? I think most of them have been pretty boring to me. So I can't say that this part of the trailer excites me that much. But I'm guessing, you know, we'll get another new utility skill. Bond of Faith. And I guess the footage is supposed to be representing it here. So what do we get? Well, we're moving along the ice. We're coming up this icy ramp.
No, this plan is insane.
I think we trigger the skill here. The mount goes away. And we fly along. Now, this feels a lot like, you know, in Heart of Thorns where we were running away from Foul Lane, doesn't it? Obviously, the theme of all the masteries upgrade our interactions with mounts, but they're all themed around Aurene, right? And communing with Aurene and Glint's power and so on. So these big crystalline wings, I'm guessing this will feel a lot like, say, the Zephyrite, you know, lightning leapy thing. We trigger it in the middle of a mount ability and it dismounts us in a really crazy way. This looks like, at least when combined with the beetle, it launches us super far off in a forward direction. But how does that work with, like, a Springer, you know, which has a completely different style of movement? How does that work with a Skimmer? I don't know exactly. And they're obviously not going to make a mastery on this release that only ties into a mount you could only get on a prior one. What are they going to do? Have the Domain of Corner free forever? I don't think so. So, yeah, it seems like a cool interaction, though. You can leap off of one mount and land. The other combo here that sounds really cool is when I'm in midair up here, can I then Griffin? Can I roller beetle ramp Griffin into the air and then move on and then land on my raptor? And oh my god, it's amazing, the chaining. I don't know. And here we get some more Dredge friends. They are still around. Very nice. So, then we get this splash. This, to me, almost feels like the cinematics team saying, we wish we could have got this on the trailer, but we only have a limited time and budget. So here's just a screen with all the stuff. So what have we got? Additional features. New Living World story. Well, thanks. We kind of got that. That's fine. New upgradable Dragon's Blood weapon sets. So we have seen a big theme this season. There's nearly always an upgradable thing for us to go for. Requiem armor being the most recent, with the Sigil of Nullification thing and all that. So, you know, what sigil will get inflated this time, guys? Get ready. Or maybe, because last time it was an armor set that inflated a sigil. Now we'll have a weapon set that inflates a rune. So, upgradable Dragon's Blood weapons. There is some stuff we can talk about lore-wise with this term here, Dragon's Blood. Like I said, this idea of fighting Kralkatorrik, it kind of is paying off a lot of stories to do with Destiny's Edge and that novel Edge of Destiny where they tried to kill the Elder Dragon and failed. The interesting thing about that novel that we interacted with a little bit in Path of Fire as well was one of the ways the band was attempting to kill the dragon with a spear said to be made of dragon's blood. The spear we destroyed in Path of Fire, and Ritlock said, oh, we'll probably regret this. So I think that that's going to be a big part of this release. That element of the expansion where we were in Glint's lair and we broke it and said, no, we shouldn't allow this thing to exist. I think that's going to come back to bite us now in some capacity, and we're going to have to find our own way of getting these spears. If you remember in the expansion itself, and it was a very dense expansion that dealt with a lot of different things, there was quite a specific, like, nod to who made this thing, and we kind of couldn't answer that question. Who made that spear? What's the origin of it? The devs did sort of flirt with that. I think, and here's my grand theory for this video now, that what's going to be revealed is the Brotherhood of the Dragon made the spear that Destiny's Edge wanted to use in the novel, and then ultimately got destroyed in Path of Fire. And I think that even in that first cutscene, Ogden might just reveal all of that to us. And a big theme of this patch is getting more of those weapons. Interestingly, the epilogue of the novel as well featured Kaith alone, her band broken up. She was still interested in the fight, and she was wandering the desert collecting shards of Kraukatorik's blood. And we never know what she did with those. Never! Throughout the entire history of this game, the devs have never actually talked about that story beat. It's one of many. So if this release actually now nods back to that, because don't forget, who just came back into the story? Kaith! And I think, you know, the answers to why is she here now? Why is she interested in the Brotherhood of the Dragon? I think she's going to say, yeah, I've been collecting these things. I had a hunch that Glyn had this idea, blah, 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 blah. Don't forget, Kaith actually having been physically able to interact with Glyn before she died as a member of Destiny's Edge. And yeah, I think that that's all going to become a big part of the story. Will end with our own manufacturing process for these kinds of weapons. I say all of this, by the way, there is, if you've been watching my Let's Play, another little thing too. If you're a Demon Priory character, you'll know about another one of these style weapons, the Sanguinary Blade, which was to do with Jormag, actually, Jormag's blood. And maybe that could be a thing. Don't forget, Ogden is at the Demon Priory. So I think all this stuff's going to come to the fore. Maybe one of our new characters too will actually get to wield the Sanguinary Blade. We're gonna have so many badass weapons in our, you know, reliquaries now. Anyway, as a game feature, yeah, I think that this is just going to be a bit like, you know, the new armor set we got before. And, yeah, they're going to be called Dragon's Blood weapons. And the idea will be to kill a dragon, you use Dragon's Blood gear. And, yeah, we're going to, like, arm the Pact if we can. We're going to arm particularly our main heroes, the people we found in the Sun's Refuge. I really think this line has tipped off so much about the story. Maybe they should have just left it at upgradable weapon sets. I mean, I'm speaking very dogmatically and confidently about this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm reading with Dragon's Blood. And hopefully you guys find that interesting. I know a lot of you won't have read the novels, and you won't be thinking about that Dermot Priory story right now, I'm sure. Next, you've also got Diviner gear. Diviner, I think, actually was the name of a gear set for one of the classes in the original game. Diviner always makes me think Crystal Desert. And, you know, the Path of the Divines and following Ascension and whatnot. It is kind of funny, you know, in the original game, our journey to the Southern Shiver Peaks occurred as we left the desert regions. And in a weird way, that's kind of what's happened with Guild Wars 2 as well. I mean, we've also explored a ton of Alolan regions. But I like that the original game, the narrative had us go to the desert. And when we finally left the desert, it was to go to the Southern Shiver Peaks. In a roundabout way, the exact same thing has happened here in Guild Wars 2. And then finally, 9 new Mistlock instabilities. This is where they reveal that. It would have been kind of nicer to reveal that around with the Siren's Reef fractal stuff, but hey. So yeah, it would have been nice to get little clips of each of these things, but it's great that the trailer does demonstrate all of this. You know, this is what people will be pausing on and talking a ton about because, you know, it shows off the release. Don't rely on them to go to, like, the blog post or something or the main website to get these extra details. And so here we get a final speech. I'll play this through so we can listen to it again.
Everyone, listen up. Glint believed in us. I believe in you. Together, we're going to save the world and kill the Crystal Dragon.
Okay, again, all right, and then we get into the cool clip. Not the cool clips just yet. Again, cool mocap. He's slamming his hand against his fist. Yeah, baby. This is obviously the player character. This is the Alolan form of the player character they've been using throughout the trailers recently. And yeah, we're just panning through our heroes. This is the new Destiny's Edge. Oh, there's more of us. So, yeah, we've got all kinds of recognizable characters here. And the real bombshell is actually nothing to do with our commander's impassioned speech here for me. It is as we pan around. Wait, where does he appear? I'm sure he's in this crowd somewhere. Maybe not, actually. Am I blind? I guess he's not in the crowd image here. But here he is. It's Logan, baby. Logan's back. And by God, he should be back. So we've seen, like, all kinds of references about him leading the Pact. Last we really... It's so funny, isn't it? But last we really got to interact with him was way back during the Crichton Civil War, the new Civil War, with the attack on Divinity's Reach and Lake Doric and all that. We haven't got to talk to him very much, but back then they set up the idea of him being the leader of the Pact. They didn't really pay off on the Blighting Pod stuff, so my theory was that with Path of Fire releasing the condition damage potentially as it was originally seeming, oriented firebrand, that maybe Logan would become a firebrand as a result of his physiological changes, as a result of his imprisonment and capture in Heart of Thorns. No, we haven't seen any of that yet. We've barely got to interact with him at all, so I wonder whether they'll do some of that, or maybe they'll just cull those aspects of the story away. If you watch like the developer live streams and stuff, you often see that they're very dynamic with where they're going with the story, and a lot of stuff kind of gets culled, I guess. So maybe that's not an angle they're going with at this point. But yeah, it's important that Logan's here. You know, if we are really setting up for a big Kralkatorrik fight, I think every surviving member of Destiny's Edge should be in this scene now. I think as well, if we can speculate and guess at to what the story will be, we can also guess at what the deficiencies in the story will be. The fact Zodja isn't in this trailer, in some ways it doesn't surprise me whatsoever, because Zodja has been so absent for so long, for so many reasons, that it's almost like something the devs should just play into now, maybe. But I really, you know, this is such a big payoff for all of these characters. With the potential of Air being active in the mists and stuff as well, I'd love to see all kinds of weird reunions, though maybe that's a rabbit hole the devs shouldn't go down. But yeah, Logan here I think is good. And Logan being here means packed influence here, which means with the Dragon's Blood weapons, I think we'll see some kind of tie-in with that. There's also something else going on in that he is subordinate to us. You know, he's looking up to us. And that means more to human player characters, obviously, maybe, than some of the other races. But, you know, that really shows as strong as he is, as prominent of a position he is in. And, you know, I'm a big fan of Logan as a character, for what it's worth, guys. It doesn't mean... That, by the way, if I'm a fan of a character, it doesn't mean I like their personality or their history or the decisions they've made, necessarily. It means that I think they add a lot to the setting, and it means that they've got an interesting journey that they've been on. And I think Logan is a fantastic character. So it's kind of cool to see, once again, that interplay between him and us, the actual player. Anyway, here's Rox. She just looks bizarre, doesn't she? I don't know. Rox, to me... Like, her face, the way she looks, has always been off and uncanny and strange to me. And do you know what I think it is? I think it's that Asura thing, where they've tried to make go in a new direction with the aesthetic of a race. No longer are the Asura, like, sharp-toothed, gremlin, nasty-looking people. They're cute, so that people can play cute, little, happy, diminutive people. And now, they've given us a female Char main character. Couldn't they have made her hideous and badass and scarred, you know, across her eye and messed up? This is the face we get. I really don't like Roxy's face. She literally, it's like they've tried to make a Char look as much like a house cat as possible. And we don't often get a close-up of her face, and I'll tell you why. It's because it's weird. Anyway, I do like Rox. We get Bram kind of smirking up at us with Ritlock in the... This is a Char, guys. This is a Char.
And kill the Crystal Dragon.
And so kill the Crystal Dragon. Right, now the final phase of the trailer. And I don't have much to say here, all right? So we might not go through this for very long. We're back in Thunderhead. And look, we get this beautiful shot here of the spines moving. Now, to some of you guys, you might see this and just be like, oh, a big dragon. But there's another level going on with this that I think is really beautiful about this shot in the trailer. For the long-time fans of Guild Wars, our first glimpses of the Elder Dragons came with the expansion, Eye of the North, where you kind of just got hints to their bodies and suggestions about their size and their strength. And especially for, you know, back in 2008 in the day, they were gargantuan, they were big, and it was very cool. Now, the coolest of those suggestions was looking to the distance in one of the maps. You saw, like, these spines, like, almost mountain-sized, massive hills off in the distance. And, you know, when the Movement of the World article was also read, it seemed, wow, is that Kralkatorrik? Is that him sleeping? And it was a really, really kind of thrilling appearance for the Elder Dragon. And the first thing that ArenaNet, and the only thing that ArenaNet really had to draw on visually when thinking about his designs in Guild Wars 2. Well, now we're at that place where they're like, we're going to do an Elder Dragon fight in episode 6, surely. So these guys have had to build an Elder Dragon. And what they will have done, I guarantee, is look back at that, you know, Char Homeland's mountain range and the spines, and they will have drawn from that. And what they're doing here is they're creating a correlation. They're creating... they're showing us something very visually similar to our original impression of him, and then they'll slowly expand it into what we find in the new game. So I think that's why this shot is like it is here. It's to remind us of the similarities in his design of what we saw in the original game, and how that will now become what we eventually see. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. But it's very powerful, and I think they did it very, very, very well. So that's the first shot. And obviously, by the way, we have seen hints of Kraukatorrik in the finale of the expansion itself. You know, we saw his face in the clouds and whatever. We got still suggestions at him. But this is another suggestion that is much more in line with what we originally saw in the first game. And by the way, yes, I know we also, in the final cutscene of Eye of the North, saw Primordus open his eyes. That's not what I'm talking about, though. That's kind of decontextualized head. All right, so anyway, he's moving on, and you see how big he is, and you got the smoke, and there's the lightning, and there's this horrible, like, noise going on in the background. Then we get, so you got a shot showing kind of our original vision of him, except now he's, like, in the clouds or some undiscernible location. And now we get kind of a redo of the Path of Fire appearance of him with his head. And he comes forward. Now, I've got to pause this at the perfect place here. It's so cool with the light. Here we go. With the lightning strike, he's illuminated. Now, this is totally updated. I've done the Path of Fire end a few times, and one of them was quite recently, actually. This is way more detailed than last time we saw him. And, you know, ArenaNet's not a company that the way they operate isn't to create stuff like too exclusively for trailers that won't translate very much elsewhere. This is what we'll see when we see him in game. And look how detailed and jagged and just crystalline and badass he looks. I love that they've gone back and updated the design, and they kind of had to, you know, they have to do more if we're actually going to be interacting with this Elder Dragon a bit more. And so, yeah, he's looking at us. So this means two things. One, he's really badass, but also if they've pulled this from a moment, a story beat in game, Kraukatorrik might be pissed off looking at us at some point in this patch. How do we survive this? Through what scenario does this happen? And we also don't kill him, and we also survive to episode 6. Or do we kill him this release? I mean, what a mind blow that would be if this was the Elder Dragon death, January 8th. I don't think it can be, right? Surely they'll save it for the finale. I don't know. Maybe they'll do like that Game of Thronesy things where it's like the penultimate episodes tend to have the mind blows. Actually, a lot of TV shows I watch end up doing that. So yeah, anyway, he's got a beautiful design. And they throw the music up with Guild Wars 2 All or Nothing, January 8th, 2019. So, yeah, you got Christmas to look forward to, New Year's drinking to look forward to, and then 1 week later, they're smack bang in it. I mean, the studio's going to have a hell of a moment getting back off of the holidays. This is cool, though. You know, most years we see it goes pretty silent for the studio around the holidays, and I understand that, you know, and that's perfectly fine. People want to take some time off. You want to have a bit of breathing room before you go away, and you want to have a bit of breathing room when you come back. But for this time, they're so, like, comfortable with the releases and whatnot, it seems, that, you know, they come back full engines firing as soon as they're back. So yeah, Guild Wars 2 All or Nothing, that's the trailer. That's basically a lot of the release as well we can get from this here. Just, you know, throwing some text up, you can get a ton of discussion and understand a lot of where the devs are going. And there you have it, guys. So I've asked you a lot of questions, answers and discussions on anything would be very cool, but I'll leave you with one final one as well. Are we actually going to fight Kraukatorrik this patch? Is that actually going to happen? I mean, it seems we're going to be in the same area as him. And what do you guys think they're going to do with, like, the time bubbles and speaking to characters that are already dead? And again, I'll remind you as well, Aurene was nowhere in this trailer. Does that mean Aurene isn't in the patch? Or does it mean that they've got some big surprise for us with regard to her? I guess we'll see. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you for more very soon.